I'm going to be crystal clear about something because it seems that much of the world has forgotten it. We don't applaud terrorists. There is nothing noble about massacring innocent people. We don't celebrate that. Not every story has two sides. Not every situation is a, yeah, but what about, oh, well, they did that. No, it is wrong to kill innocent civilians. It is wrong to massacre women and children and elderly people and unarmed men. It is wrong. Full stop. No context. No history lesson needed. No reminder of who did what to who when. No. I cannot even possibly fathom how that needs to be said to anybody, but apparently it does to many, many people. No, terrorism is wrong. It is not justified. You are not a victim if you go out and behead people. No. I am just beyond frustrated and disgusted and angry at the number of people who are trying to justify and create moral equivalencies where there just aren't any. If you hadn't already figured out, I'm referencing the Hamas attacks on Israelis and foreigners. And I cannot possibly wrap my head around how we've gotten to such a dire situation that people can't just say that committing atrocities against civilians is wrong. Like you can't read a single thread on Twitter without the majority of people going, yeah, but Israel did this and Israel did that, and oh well, the Palestinians are. That is all true. Sure, I acknowledge that Israel hasn't been perfect, and I acknowledge that Palestinians absolutely have some legitimate grievances, but that has nothing to do with Hamas beheading people and raping people and taking hostages. There is absolutely zero justification for that, and I just can't even possibly understand anybody who could think otherwise. Like, they're terrorists. Like, I'm in Canada, and the CBC had this released memo that was supposed to be secretive saying not to call them terrorists because it creates a false idea in people's minds, or they're terrorists. It's pretty simple. When you specifically target civilians and you execute them with political and religious motivations with an attempt to create political change, that's terrorism. They're not rebels, they're not militants, they're not freedom fighters. They're fucking evil. That's what that is. I don't give a shit who you are, what you believe in, what your faith is, what your belief system, your worldview, your experiences, your fucking personal traumas. It doesn't matter. There are two types of people in the world. The people who understand that executing innocent people, killing babies, raping women, taking hostages, posting videos online, bragging about it, that's wrong. Or there's a type of people who think, yeah, but it's not really that wrong, or is it any more wrong than what the other side did? Yes it is. it just, we live in an unbelievably toxic time. I just, I want to believe the best in people. I want to hold out hope for a more positive future. This is not it. Like, by the latest numbers, we're looking at like 1,200 Israelis killed, and not even just Israelis. I mean, we're talking people all over the world. The music festival specifically like created to promote peace, and what, 260 people executed. Just okay, it's hard to even fathom that people can justify it or play the, oh, there's two sides. Yeah, yeah, there are two sides in most situations, and there is absolutely a place to talk about Palestinian issues, but it shouldn't come with a but after talking about the execution, wholesale slaughter of over 1,000 people. Not the time to go, yeah, but no. Like it's just, it's baffling. I can't wrap my head around how anybody can possibly justify any of it. Because I mean, we all agree terrorism is wrong, right? I want to hope that that's a commonly held belief. I'm losing faith that it shouldn't be a controversial statement, but apparently it is. And I mean, these people who are out there protesting, like in support of Palestine and in support of Hamas, like, is that how they felt after 9/11? Because you could make the exact same argument about Osama bin Laden and, you know, Al Qaeda and everything. I mean, they had grievances. They didn't just do it because they hate our freedom, as a lot of politicians wanted to break it down. No, they did it for much the same reasons. They felt oppression from, the West, particularly the US. They hated the idea that there was, what they viewed as an illegal occupation, and maybe not an occupation, but they hated the idea that there were US bases in Saudi Arabia, the holy lands of Islam. They hated how the US had been intervening, particularly the CIA, had been intervening in Middle Eastern affairs, the war in Iraq and Operation Desert Storm in the early 90s, how they had been fighting against, the Ayatollah in Iran, and, on and on and on, Yemen, you name it, their involvement with Israel. All of those things are why Osama bin Laden and Al Qaeda attacked the World Trade Center on 9/11. Were they legitimate grievances? Yeah, of course. U.S. foreign policy is, it's got some issues. The West tends to have a little too much influence around the world. I will definitely agree with that. Does that justify 9/11? Does that justify the 3,500 people who died? Absolutely fucking not. I mean, that that should go without saying, but apparently it needs to be said. You want to look at the last time people were trying to justify a large scale execution of Jewish people. Yeah, I'm going to invoke Godwin's law here, but, you don't have to go any further than the Nazis. I mean, it's. Does anybody try to. Sorry, I'm getting heated here. When you look at the Holocaust, is there any justification for it? Absolutely fucking not. There is not. There's absolutely no justification for it. Are there reasons why things were done? Yeah, probably, but who gives a shit? I mean, like it. There are always reasons for somebody to act in the most evil, vicious, barbaric way. Sure, they could find excuses for it. Nothing happens in a vacuum, but it doesn't justify some of the most evil, wretched acts that people are capable of. And honestly, what I've seen, like particularly from Hamas, is some of the most vile and evil things I've ever seen. It's just it's mind-boggling and horrifying to look all across the world and see naive fucking college students out there supporting this, marching to free Palestine. And like there was an article that I came across that I thought really perfectly summed it up. um, yeah, written by the Free Press. um, yeah, called "Today's Israel's 9/11." The terrorists went house to house. They maimed, they murdered, they mutilated. And I don't know exactly how YouTube is about this stuff. I'm taking a chance here because it's pretty graphic, but my perspective is that if I end up getting banned or some sort of strike for graphic content just for talking about what was actually done on that day, then I think that's a pretty good statement of why nobody in their right mind should have any reason to stand behind it and support it and say, yeah, but I mean, they were kind of right, or any of this other moral equivalency bullshit. It's appalling. Yeah, this right here, I don't know how many people recognize this photo, but that girl in the back there, her name is, I'm not sure how to pronounce it, but Shani Lauk. She's a German tourist. I've heard either 22 or 30, doesn't really matter. But she was one of the festival goers. Just a young woman out at a music festival to promote peace when these animals came, abducted her, shot her. Originally, it was assumed they had killed her. There's now reports, unconfirmed, but her mother's gotten a call stating that she's actually alive in a Gaza hospital. That's, remains to be seen. Just an awful situation all around, but they paraded her body through Gaza. They spat on her. It just, her limbs were clearly broken, and just, you don't even want to imagine what else they might have potentially done. Like this is not a revolution of peaceful protesters trying to better their situation. These are vile, vicious monsters. But yeah, this article I think puts everything into perspective pretty well. That if anybody is unsure of exactly what they're standing for, of exactly why they're out there waving a flag and don't fully understand exactly what happened, let's just, cover this here. I'm going to describe the images coming out of Israel over the last 12 hours. I don't want to believe any of them are real because they're horrifying. Among the most gruesome scenes of mutilation, murder, and abduction imaginable. But there's now going to be a war between Israel and Hamas, and possibly a broader regional war. This was written just a few hours after reports were coming out about the massacre that took place Saturday morning. So obviously we know now that there absolutely is a war, and it's just getting started. Israel will invade Gaza. As we speak, Israelis my age are being called up to war. Some of them are my friends. Within 2 or 3 days, the media narrative will change. Yup. As it does every time, and the grisly invasion that started the war quickly will be minimized into a half sentence of euphemistic dishonesty in press accounts. An incursion by Gaza-based militants so that the focus can turn to prosecuting Israel. Like I said earlier, we've already seen that. The CBC, which is, Canada's state-funded media source, has already had a leaked memo declaring that, their journalists don't refer to Hamas as terrorists. They're militants, or they're freedom fighters, or they're, anything else you can imagine. And again, we're already seeing that now too. The fact that the narrative has already shifted to look at what Israel's doing. Oh, look at that. They're cutting off supplies to Gaza. Look at their terrorist atrocities. Okay, first of all, Israel can't be terrorist. Okay. Lesson time. Just to be clear, I have a degree in political science, so I've been studying this a lot longer than most people have ever even heard of Hamas. I'm well aware of what's going on in the Middle East. I'm well aware of the history of Israel and Palestine. And I'm also well aware of terrorism. People keep incorrectly using terms like terrorism and war crimes without actually having any idea what any of them mean. So I'll just give you a quick rundown. Terrorism can only be done by non-state actors, meaning people who are not representative of a government or a country, but are, operating within non-governmental organizations with the sole express purpose of causing death, destruction, all of that through ideological or political or religious motives with the intent of creating change in a government's policy. That's the definition of terrorism, right? Israel cannot be a terrorist because they're not non-state actors. They are a state. They are the government. They have, according to the rules of war and the Treaty of Westphalia of 1648 and the UN Charter and all that, states, aka governments, have the authorization to the authorization to create and engage in war. There are rules to war, of course. The Geneva Convention dictates that. But you can't be a terrorist state because, by definition, if you are a state, you have the right to have war. Therefore, you don't need to create. Yeah. So on the flip side, people talk about Hamas's war crimes. Well, Hamas can't commit war crimes because Hamas is not capable of executing war. Again, you have to be a state in order to have the legal jurisdiction to have a war. Right? So on the flip side, Israel could be tried for war crimes. The U.S. could be tried for war crimes. Any state can be tried for war crimes because they have the jurisdiction to have a war, but they can't be declared as terrorists because that has to be a non-state actor. And again, if you're a government, you're a state actor. Just linguistic distinctions that bother me when people get those mixed up. But all right, so back to the article. This is why everyone needs to know about the images, the ones you won't see if you turn on MSNBC or the BBC today. Because so much of the media and Western foreign policy officialdom do not want to embarrass the Palestinians by showing the sadistic brutality of Hamas. They do not want to undermine the coming effort to pressure Israel to stop fighting. They do not want people to notice the Iranian role in the war and how it's fueled by an appallingly dangerous Biden administration policy towards the world's leading state sponsor of terrorism. See? Hey, there you go. Look at that language. They nailed it. Iran is not a terrorist state. They are not, committing acts of terrorism because they are a state. They are a state sponsor of terrorism. That is the perfect way to describe that. And it's also important that people understand, too, that the Iranian people are not the Iranian government. People think of Iran and, that whole section of the world, as being Arabic. They're Arabs, they speak Arabic, they're Muslim. Iran is none of those things. The majority of their population is not Arab, like ethnicity. They're not Arabic, and they're not Muslim. It's something that a lot of people don't understand, and it's very, very important. The majority of Iranians are actually Persian, of Persian descent, like ethnically speaking, not Arab. They don't speak Arabic. They speak Farsi. Yeah, so Farsi and Urdu, I get those mixed up. Urdu is the language of Pakistan. Farsi is the official language of, the language that's most often spoken in Iran. The official language now is Arabic. And many of them, I'd say most of Iranian people, are not actually Muslim. Like, that requires going back to 1979? The Iranian Revolution, where Arabic Muslims overthrew the government in Iran, took control, and installed the Ayatollah Khomeini. It's an interesting dynamic going on over there, actually. But yeah, I can get to that later. Here, there was a video. Here you go. Here, there's a video that I wanted to show, but it seems to fit in right now. Again, people think that Iran and all the people of Iran are fully supportive of Palestine and Muslims in general and love their government and they're terrorists and all that. There was a situation that arose the day after the terrorist attacks in Israel. And I can just... Reaction to the Israel terrorist attack from Iran. Islamic Republic supporters. Sorry, I'm going to have to pause this here for a second.